My name is Maurice Wingate, President and founder of Employee Care Work-Life Services. For almost 3 decades, we've worked with employee assistance providers and behavioral health organizations, helping them support their clients and their employees across the country. Over the last several years, one trend has become increasingly clear. Smaller EAPs are losing ground to larger national providers. Is it because they lack clinical quality, or is it because their teams aren't capable? Perhaps it's employers no longer value EAP services. The answer is that small EAPs are losing out because of the competitive landscape has changed. National providers today are not just selling counseling sessions, they're selling integrated ecosystems. They bundle mental health, work-life services, digital tools, care navigation, and large-scale infrastructure under one contract. Employers are not simply evaluating clinical excellence anymore. They're evaluating breadth, integration, scalability, and perceived value per employee. And this is where many mid-sized EAPs feel pressure. They may have strong clinicians, strong outcomes, strong employer relationships, but when a request for proposal, better known as an RFP, arrives on their desk, asking about child care support, elder care navigation, legal and financial assistance, relocation resources, or disaster services, the answer from smaller EAPs is often limited. Not because they don't see the value, but because work-life services were never part of their core traditional clinical EAP model. Historically, EAPs have been built around a clinical framework: crisis response, short-term counseling, mental health triage, referral networks, and utilization management. The model remains important. In fact, it's more important than ever. But employers are now asking a broader question. They're asking, how do we prevent stress from becoming a clinical issue in the first place? That's the shift. Work-life friction, childcare breakdowns, dealing with elderly parents, financial stress, relocation logistics, and time-intensive life demands often precedes clinical distress. When those practical issues remain unresolved, they escalate into anxiety, burnout, and mental health claims. National providers understand this shift. They're packaging work-life infrastructure along with their clinical services. And when they do, their proposals look more comprehensive, more preventative, and more competitive. Mid-sized EAPs, by contrast, are often forced into a defensive posture, competing on price, competing on responsiveness, competing on relationships, but rarely competing on breadth. And when procurement teams compare RFPs side by side, breadth matters. It's not about replacing clinical services. It's about recognizing that the competitive field has expanded. Employers increasingly expect their EAPs to address both clinical needs and practical life challenges. They want a partner who can respond to counseling requests and help an employee secure childcare. They want support for crisis and navigation for daily life's complexities. The challenge for many EAPs is structural. Building full-scale work-life infrastructure internally requires hiring specialists, building vendor networks, managing quality control, and creating operational systems. That expansion is expensive and complex. For many organizations, it's just not feasible. At the same time, doing nothing is no longer sustainable. Consolidation is accelerating. Smaller EAPs are being consumed and acquired by larger networks, health systems, or insurance carriers because they cannot compete independently on scope. Question becomes, how do mid-sized EAPs remain competitive? without transforming into national healthcare conglomerates. The answer is not abandoning clinical identity. It's expanding value intelligently. Work-life services are not clinical. They are logistical, practical, and preventative. They reduce the number of situations that escalate into therapy cases. They protect clinician capacity, and they increase the perceived value that the EAP contracts. When employers see structured work-life support embedded within an EAP offering, the proposal becomes stronger, not because it replaces counseling, but because it complements it. This is where integration matters. Instead of building infrastructure internally, forward-thinking EAPs are integrating work-life services into their offering. They maintain their clinical focus while expanding their competitive footprint. The result is threefold. First, employer proposals become more comprehensive and more attractive. Second, clinical teams experience reduced overload because certain stressors are resolved before escalation. And third, the organization strengthens its position in a consolidating market. The goal is not to become a national provider overnight. The goal is to compete effectively in a market where expectations have expanded. The EAP industry was built on clinical excellence. That foundation remains critical. But the future of competitiveness includes practical work-life infrastructure layered alongside clinical strength. At Employee Care, our focus is on helping EAPs expand their value proposition without expanding internal overhead. We provide structured work-life services that integrates alongside clinical offerings, allowing mid-sized providers to compete more effectively against larger national players. The landscape is shifting. Employers are asking for more. Consolidating is accelerating, and the EAPs that adapt structurally, not just clinically, are the ones that remain independent and competitive. If you're part of a mid-sized EAP evaluating how to strengthen your offering in an increasingly competitive environment, you can learn more at employeecare.net, because the future of EAP competitiveness isn't just clinical, it's comprehensive.